With a multitude of iterations throughout the years, we have seen many different looks for Michael Myers' iconic white mask, some of which are better than others. So in this video, we will be ranking all 14 variants of the mask from worst to best. Happy Halloween, Scream Team, Zach Cherry here. Guys, I started this channel because I'm a huge horror geek, and if you're like me, you might want to consider hitting that subscribe button and turning on those bell notifications so you can stay up to date with all my latest videos. Real quick before we start, I just want to give a personal shout out to the incredible Matthew Tarian, who allowed me to feature his artwork throughout this video, as well as in the thumbnail design. If you're interested in checking out more of his collection, you can find a link to his website in the descriptions, and maybe pick yourself up one of these fine Michael Myers portraits. So how we're going to do this is I'm going to go through each one of the masks chronologically from 1978 to 2018, say a few things about them, like a sort of mini review, and then at the end of the video, I'm going to give you my ranking. So with that in mind, toss this video a thumbs up and meet me in the comment section down below to give me your personal rankings of all the Michael Myers masks. So first up, we're going to be looking at the OG classic from 1978, which everyone and their grandmother knows by now is a William Shatner mask. Essentially, this was an arts and crafts project, or a happy accident. I don't know what you want to call it. Basically, they just opened the eyes more, tousled the hair, got rid of the sideburns, and painted the whole thing white, which probably took a couple of hours and cost next to nothing to do, and it turned out to be lightning in a bottle because that was the day that the face of evil was born. I think the creep factor is very high here. It's mostly in the simplicity of the design itself. This mask photographs really well, no matter what lighting it's under. There's enough definition to it that it doesn't look too distinguishing, but it's also not just a white mask without any feature or character to it. It actually looks like the absence of a human, where there used to be one, which is exactly what the shape is. And I love that you never see his eyes, which is actually going to be a very important factor as we go through this list. Fuck, I should have rethought this turtleneck. So after they finished filming the original Halloween, there was no intention of making any more movies with Michael Myers. So they weren't exactly gentle with it during filming. Nick Castle apparently kept it in his back pocket when he wasn't wearing it. So it got a little warped because it was all scrunched up back there, and some of the paint faded. But then Deborah Hill held onto the mask after filming, and for all that time between the movies, she just kept it under her bed, and she was a heavy smoker. So because of that, the mask started to yellow. So that's why it has a more jaundiced look to it in Halloween 2. But this was the same mask, and I'm still gonna include it as its own entry because it was altered, albeit unintentionally. I don't want the stuntman behind the mask to ever be a deciding factor in this breakdown, as we're just looking at the mask itself. But it should be noted that Dick Warlock does have a wider face than Nick Castle, and because it's being stretched so much more, this is the first time we see his eyes through the mask, and I don't mind it as much here. I actually think the scene where we see the close-up on them as he stabs Alice is quite chilling. If you've ever seen the TV version of the film, there's the scene where he kills Nurse Karen in the hot tub, and there's a few extra frames that just linger on his face, and he has this like derpy expression where he's sort of looking to the side. I don't even know how to describe it. I'm just gonna put it up on the screen for you to see, but it just looked really bad. But otherwise, I'm pretty happy with the aesthetic of this mask. It's not hard to believe that, you know, it might have gotten a little dirty after his scuffle at the end of the first movie. Like, he fell out of that window, he was rolling around in some dirt. That's just how I'm gonna justify it anyway. But moving on to the next movie, don't worry, we're not talking about Season of the Witch. I don't want to upset anyone's delicate sensibilities. Instead, we're going directly to 1988 with Halloween 4. So after the filming of Halloween 2, Dick Warlock asked Deborah Hill if he could keep the mask for himself, and she was like, yeah, whatever, we're not gonna make another one of these movies, he's dead. But I guess lucky for him, because he held on to that for many years before privately selling it and probably fetching a pretty penny. Anyway, long story less long, because they no longer had the mask, they had to come up with something new. So they ended up ordering more William Shatner masks, and I'm not sure if they had ordered them thinking that they would already be altered before they arrived, or that they were going to arrive and then they would alter them after the fact, but they got this case of masks and they were all pink skinned with white hair. So again, I'm sure everybody and their grandmother knows in that one scene in Halloween 4 where Loomis and Jamie are in the schoolhouse and Michael Myers comes up behind Loomis and throws him through that glass door, we can see him wearing that pink mask mask with the white hair. Like, it's just like, whoa, where did that come from? And there were like so many theories. Like, I think someone thought they put the scenes out of order because he did get sprayed by Rachel with the fire extinguisher, and that was what gave him that appearance. But apparently what had happened was that they were filming really late into the night and everyone was tired, and when the props guy went to get the mask out of the trailer or whatever, he grabbed the wrong one because they'd only altered like one of them. So he ended up grabbing one of the pink masks and they put it on the guy and they filmed and nobody said anything. Allegedly. But because this mask is in the movie, we're going to include it as one of the variants. And I mean, I don't know what to say about it. The skin and hair are wrong. I know it kind of resembles the Ben Tramer mask from Halloween 2, but I'm not gonna sit here and try to justifiably find anything good about it. This should have never been in the movie. But of course the mask we do see throughout the movie still is a William Shatner mask, painted white and with the hair dyed and the sideburns removed. But for whatever reason, the paint job they did here really hides the texture. The hair is slicked back rather than messy and tousled. The eye holes are not really cut open too much, which again is fine. I don't need to see his eyes, but then the lips are really pursed and his eyebrows are darker and look more drawn on. So he kind of looks a little quizzical, like he's concentrating. Not too hard, but enough that it gives him more expression than it should have. But it's also so featureless and blank at the same time. I know a lot of people hate this mask and they consider it to be the worst one, and I don't agree with that. I think that, yeah, it's bad, but it could be a lot worse, and we've seen it a lot worse. But mostly he just looks kind of dopey, especially towards the end during the climax. This is probably a controversial opinion, but I actually really liked his look with just the bandages. I don't know if I would have wanted him to look like that throughout the entire movie, but I still really liked this look on him. It was sort of like the Halloween franchise equivalent to Sackhead Jason. But moving on to Halloween 5, just 1 year later, we have a new mask yet again. And I don't know what the fuck happened here, because this one is so jarring to me. Like, the first time I saw it, I thought it was a mistake and then it would be corrected in the next scene. But then as we went through the movie, I was just like, oh, okay, I guess this is what Michael looks like now. And I mean, it makes absolutely no sense within the context of the story, because, you know, at least in 4, that was a new mask. He grabbed it off of the shelf in the store. You know, he wouldn't have had the one from the original because it was burnt up. So the one that he has in Halloween 4 should still be the same one that he has in Halloween 5. But for whatever reason, they didn't use it. And I don't know if that's because they didn't have it, or maybe they just thought it looked so bad that they wanted to try again, and then it just got worse. And the only way I can describe this one is that it looks like a witch. Like a really pointy witch with maybe a little bit of hyena to it as well. And that's probably because of the longer hair, but everything about it seems very elongated. And he looks really mean too, like he's perpetually scowling. And you can see that in the eye shape and eyebrows especially. And again, at least we don't see the eyes, not through the mask anyway, but yeah, this one is fucked. And I feel like all of the features are also intensified by the fact that he's not tucking the neck into the collar. This is also the first time it hasn't been a William Shatner mask, since it was a mold of Greg Nicotero's face. But again, this wasn't an improvement. And I guess from here on out, it just became a novelty to have a new mask for each film. But now we're moving on to Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, 1995, and we finally have a good mask here. I think at this point, I don't even care about mask continuity, since this is 6 years later, and this timeline is about to be made obsolete anyway. But they actually made this mask using the original poster of Michael Myers as a reference. So because of that, we get as close to what it should look like as possible, and it looks scary AF. He even looks a little more deranged here because he's got that messy hair. There are hints of earthy tones to the mask. It's not just stark white. So they actually, you know, took some time to put detailing into this. The eyebrows here are also subtle. You just get a really nice balance with the definition. On the downside, it does have like a little bit of a lumpy look to it, but honestly, this was a fine job. But now we get to 1998 with the Halloween H20 controversy, where we have no more than 4 masks to evaluate. So which one do we begin with? I guess we'll just piggyback off of the last one first. So essentially they were going to go into this movie with the curse mask, not the exact same one, but a new version of it, which was created by John Carl Buechler using the same mold. There were 4 different variants of this one which were made, which I mean look pretty much the same, although the video footage here is is not the best quality, so there might be some slight differences that I'm not really noticing, more so in the shading. Whichever one they settled on was used in the scene at the beginning of the movie in Jimmy's house. We barely get to see the mask, and even when it is on screen, it's almost blink and you miss it. But from what I can tell, this is actually a slight improvement over the one they used in Curse, because it seems a little more smoothed out. It doesn't have that lumpiness anymore. But again, it's really hard to tell because we're just looking at poor quality production footage. It really is a shame that they didn't use this one because the garbage that they settled on is like bottom tier Myers mask. And I can only imagine the reason is because they didn't want any association with the Thorn timeline to be in H20, which is like the dumbest reason to be using a shittier mask. But that will bring us to the KNB variant. This is the mask they fully went into production with, and it was like 3 weeks into filming or something that they had already gotten so much done that someone came in and pointed out that it was definitely not a Michael Myers mask. So then they basically had to go back to square one and figure out what they were going to do. This one to me looks like an alien. The eye holes are really wide, and at least we still don't see the eyes, but it does invite that extraterrestrial comparison. It has a very almost too smooth finish to it. There's barely any definition. The eyebrows are really pronounced and very arched. The hairline is also a bit off, and again, the hair is too slicked back. It's like the Halloween 4 mask all over again. It actually kind of looks like it's had some Botox done. Anyway, at some point they got the Stan Winston mask, which they used for all the close-up reshoots, and this is the one that is predominantly seen throughout the film. I don't think the mask is completely horrible. It has some good definition for sure. I don't like how pronounced the eyebrows are though. The hair is not dissimilar from the way it looked with the Curse mask, but it does seem a little poofier here. It almost looks like a Raggedy Andy doll. I think what kills this mask for me is the eye visibility. At this point, other than Halloween 2, this is the most eye contact Michael has made with the camera. I previously said in my last video that the eye holes were a little too big, but on reevaluation, I think it's more so the case that the mask is way too small and stretches right up against the actor's face. And I don't know if it can be entirely blamed on the mask or just the production crew who didn't bother to hide it with proper lighting or whatever. It's way too distracting for me, especially in the moment when Laurie knees him in the crotch or when he's stuck under the van. When I hear that Dr. Loomis monologue about Michael having the blackest devil eyes, this is not what I envision. But anyway, moving on, the last mask that we have for H20 is the infamous CGI mask. Apparently they forgot to reshoot this one moment with the Stan Winston mask, and rather than leave the 2-second shot as the KNB mask, they decided to make a shitty circa 1998 computer generated mask substitute. I don't know if I should be praising this because I honestly didn't notice this when I first saw this in the theaters, and it wasn't until like I was an adult and well versed in all the Halloween trivia that I was told that yeah, this was a CGI mask. But now that I know about it, I can't unsee it. There's nothing to even really say about this one. It's horrendous, and not even just visually, but based on pure principle alone. 2002 Halloween Resurrection, where some of the masks suffered from having little to no definition. This one has way too much definition. It just looks like he's wearing a lot of makeup. The eyebrows are way too dark. The lines are set in really deep, and it makes him look very jowly. I don't even know how to describe the forehead. Like, it almost looks like a cobra. Also, there's a lot of black makeup under the eyes, which I guess was the fix for the visible eyes, because, you know, you do see them here, but they're hidden just a little bit. It just depends on like what light he's in. But then it makes him look like he's wearing eyeliner, and that only exacerbates the whole makeup look. I think the hair is good. You know, it's on fleek. The mask definitely photographs better under certain lighting, but then like half the time it just looks like shit. And I think overall it just looks really primped. But then we make our way over to the remake, which is the total opposite, because this is like not a pretty Michael Myers. This one is grungy and cracked. I actually think this one is pretty legit. I want to be as unbiased about this one as possible because I do not really like the Rob Zombie movies, but I'm not gonna let that influence how I feel about the mask itself. I think up until this point in the franchise, this was the closest they had come to recreating the original Shatner, and I actually do like the cracked aesthetic of it. It's very novel to this movie. It stands out. I will say that it has a much more menacing and intimidating look to it, which kind of works in both its favor and against it, because obviously while this is what they were going for, I feel like it's a little too characteristic. Like the original mask is a blank blank slate and becomes whatever our psyche wants to make of it, and I feel that in this mask it's too specific. And I don't want to compare this to the 2018 mask because, you know, that one is really worn down too, but I feel like here it's a little too embellished, like it's almost too perfectly cracked. I do like it though, I will say I do like it. However, I do not like what they did with it in the sequel, because this just looks nasty. I mean, first of all, way too much exposed face. If I don't want to see his eyes, I definitely don't want to see half of his face. You can see the beard, which I'm sure has little bits of dog gizzards and vomit stuck in it. It just looks like it probably smells awful. Like if Annie didn't see Michael standing behind her in the bathroom, she sure as hell could smell him. The hair being all messed up too, it gives it a very Lion King-esque appearance. Not like the Disney movie, but the Broadway production. But I mean, like, it is what it is. At least this is what they were going for, so they succeeded in that regard, whereas like all the other movies tried and failed, so, you know, I'll give it that. And then finally, we come to the 2018 Mask. And I know you guys think that I hate this movie because I said some truthful things about it, but I mean, like, I don't hate it. I just don't like the story. From a production standpoint, this is the best movie in the franchise, so I can say that because it's true. And with the quality of the production being so high, that translates into the Mask as well. First of all, what is so great about this one is that it is, for all intents and purposes, the exact same one that he wore in 1978. So because they wanted to capture a realistic decomposition of a latex mask, they did their homework to find out exactly the kind of wear and tear it would suffer, but also keeping in mind that this would have been stored in an evidence box, kept away from UV light, and just really came to a very specific conclusion for what it would look like 40 years later. And it's fucking incredible. I mean, this looks so accurate to the original. The continuity, having the puncture hole in the neck from the knitting needle, and the scratching around the eye. This one doesn't feel too exaggerated, so I don't feel like it adds too much personality, which is good because the mask isn't supposed to have any. Okay, so let's rank this shit now. 14th place is no question the CGI mask from H20. Not a real mask, enough said. 13th place, I'm going to say the pink mask from Halloween 4 because it's just wrong. That should have never been in the movie in the first place, but I mean, at least it is a physical mask, so I can put it above the CGI one. 12th place is gonna be the ripped mask from Rob Zombie's H2. It's just too revealing, too grungy. It is not who Michael Myers is to me. 11th place, I'm going to say the witch mask from Halloween 5. I don't know what else to call it. It's just too distinctly different to me. Like, I love the movie, and I even love the mask just for how bad it is, but there's just no way that it's not bottom tier. 10th place is gonna be the KNB mask from H2O. This one is also shit, but it's bland enough that I would probably prefer it to the witch mask. Honestly, I hate the Stan Winston mask as much as this one, and normally I would probably put this above the Stan Winston mask just because you can't really see the eyes, but the fact that the eyes make it look like an alien just completely ruins the look of the whole thing. So having said that, 9th place is going to be the Stan Winston mask. 8th place is the makeup mask. You know, this is actually kind of on par with the Stan Winston one for me. It does look okay under the right light, but the more I just look at it, the more I hate it. Just way too over-defined. In 7th place is the regular Halloween 4 mask. This might be the most controversial pick on this list. I don't know, I'll find out later, but I don't hate this one. It looks dumb as fuck, but you can't see the eyes, and that is a critical component here. But now we're kind of getting into the good masks, because 6th place for me is the cracked mask from Rob Zombie's Halloween. It's a great mask, it's just a little too grungy for my personal liking. 5th place is gonna be Halloween 2. Yes, it's the same mask from the original, but it just looks really strange on Dick Warlock's head, and I know I said that I wasn't going to make the person wearing the mask a factor in the ranking here. I mean, I don't know, I guess it's just the inconsistency for me. Give me a break, these rankings are hard. For 4th place, I'm gonna go with the John Carl Buechler. This is basically on par with the Curse mask, and if we had seen more of it, this very well might have been the better of the two, but it really is a shame that H2O fucked this up, because if they had used this mask, it would have been like so much better. But that'll bring us to 3rd place with the lumpy mask. This is just a really good design. It's very frightening to me, and it just looks so good no matter what light it's under. 2nd place, okay, this is a little bit of a dilemma, because on one hand, the 2018 mask was almost a labor of love and probably had a lot more attention put into it than anything else in the franchise, but on the other hand, it's hard to not consider the simplicity of the classic, even if it was just thrown together in a few hours. And a part of me feels like I need to make it up to the 2018 stans because they they were so pissed off that I ranked their movie low, but then it just feels like I'm pandering. So fuck that. Halloween 2018 is second place. So yeah guys, first place, obviously it's the Shatner original. Come on, how could it not be? Just want to give a big shout out to my Patreon supporter Lloyd Neal. If you guys are interested in delving deeper into my thoughts on the Halloween franchise, you can check out my Patreon podcast for just $1 a month, where I release new episodes every Friday. Otherwise, I'll be back here next week with my top 10 favorite Halloween kills. Thanks so much for watching guys, I've been Zach Cherry, and I'll be right back.